You're with Newsmakers. On the panel, Kathryn Dalziel, David Round and Garth Gallaway. The Social Development Minister sparked a feisty political stoush after releasing the full financial details about two DPB complainants who had gone public to protest cuts to the training incentive allowance. Paula Bennett has been branded a Muldoonist bully by the Labour Party. Were her actions dodgy or entirely warranted? Kathryn.
Well, I'd like to tell you what I think in the media mic, but apparently that creates an authorisation for Paula Bennett to access all of my background from her database, from the Swift database.
Are you on the public seat?
I'd like to share with you and tell you, after, been working in privacy since 1993 about the principles, and I'd like to tell you about the ministerial guidelines and the direct breach of example 6 in the ministerial guidelines, but apparently if I say anything, that now opens me up to public scrutiny, so,
But there's nothing you're afraid of in that, sure.
What have you got to hide, Kathryn?
Absolutely not, but, but it doesn't matter if it's relevant or not. Apparently everything in my entire background, and no, I haven't used WINS for support. The government did pay for my education, but in a different way. But no, apparently this opens all that up. Probably my ID records, my health records, everything.
If I
doesn't matter if it's relevant or not.
If I might interrupt the heavy irony of this sister of a well-known Labour Party.
I knew that was coming, because that will be the topic.
Well,
it's got nothing to do with the fact I've practiced in privacy since 1993. It's because my older sister is a Labour politician.
What the minister
Outrageous.
was saying was perfectly reasonable, and the information she gave was perfectly relevant information about women who had put themselves in the public spotlight already, and all she was doing was simply providing the full facts.
No, she wasn't, because the information was inaccurate. That's the other point. First of all, what she released was their personal income details and saying this was a cost to the government without making any inquiries about child support that was being paid by the father of the children. And secondly, the suggestion was that these women were getting this huge amount of money when they were entitled to every single cent of it.
I don't think there has ever been any suggestion by Paula Bennett that they were not entitled to the money. There's been no accusation of fraud at all, to the best of my knowledge.
She was saying they were getting too much and they didn't need any more. The other thing is the women were not asking for a handout. They were asking for a loan, which they can't get, and I think that's been lost.
Which she is now getting her officials to have a look into. So perhaps there could be some productivity to come from this great racket. Garth, how do you see it? Did Paula Bennett do the right thing?
I'm a little bit scared to enter into the debate.
Brilliant.
Well, personally, I think she could have behaved possibly in a more considered way, but I prefer the approach that she's taken to her slipping the information to a journalist or another party and it coming out in another way. I don't have any great problem with what she did. These people, I think, have waded into the public debate, which you'll disagree with, Kathryn, but saying that they're not getting enough or that they're not being treated fairly, I think it's all part of the debate. They've got nothing to hide. I'm not sure what the complaint's about.
Kathryn, can I just come back to you for a legal opinion on something? In terms of the written guidelines to ministers, the press cited this advice from the Privacy Commissioner, quote, "The Privacy Commissioner says that if a minister releases only information that is relevant to the issues raised by the individual, that person may not be able to claim that any particular harm was caused." Is that what Minister Bennett would be relying on?
Yes, it is, but that's been taken out of context because that particular excerpt from the guidelines comes within the context of the person who's speaking in the media specifically asking for comment on their case from the minister. So that line is now the follow-on from where a beneficiary says, can the minister explain why I'm not getting this particular benefit, which would open up. And what the Commissioner says is in those circumstances, you may share information. What happened with these women is all they said was, we don't understand why the training incentive allowance is going, we don't understand why we can't get a loan, and which we're prepared to pay back. We don't understand that. And if you go and have a look at example 6 on the ministerial guidelines where that situation is specifically covered, the Privacy Commissioner makes it clear that the minister is not to discuss personal circumstances. If there is more information, she can only do it with the minister can only release that information with consent.
OK. Your hunch, do you think the Privacy Commissioner will wrap the minister over the knuckles?
There's so many options available to the Privacy Commissioner, including declining not to investigate, so I've got no idea the way the Commissioner's going to go.
OK. Now, does New Zealand need to woo more wealthy investor migrants to our shores? And what does it take? Well, National has just changed the policy so that investors with $10 million or more can gain residency within 3 years without any business experience and, more importantly, without any English language skills. Dr. Peter Sharples is furious. He reckons that anyone from North Asia, for example, should be acquainted to some degree with a bit of te reo and, of course, English. Is Dr. Sharples right?
I think this whole proposal reveals the moral bankruptcy of our country, that we're actually selling ourselves like a whore on a street corner, and I'd like to apologise to all whores on street corners. I thought that the cartoon of the press was right yesterday. We sneer about this sort of thing when Tonga sells citizenship, and here we are doing the same thing. $10 million, and you can buy your way into this country. And what happens to that money? Oh, heaven knows.
Although, isn't National just changing the policy to reflect that of Australia's? So that we are actually equally competitive, you know, for these wealthy North Asians?
I don't know what Australia's policy is.
They have no English language proficiency, apparently, for the mega-rich migrant.
Really? Well, that surprises me. I wouldn't have really thought that Australia would have had to resort to that sort of tactic. But in any case, I don't think we should.
All right. Garth, what do you think?
I agree with Peter Sharples wholeheartedly. I think that if people are going to come in New Zealand, to live in New Zealand, and New Zealanders are to welcome them, and they should, then there has to be some integration in society. And if you're not going to speak the language and it's all about how much money you've got, I think that brings with it separation from the outset. And people coming in on that basis won't integrate into our society, and I think that's a very poor thing. I think, again, I find myself in agreement with David Round.
Well, this is a moment. By the way, could this latest policy by National be another nugget of temptation for Winston to do as Lazarus?
Well, it could be, but it won't work.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I do agree with my colleagues, perhaps not as strongly as David put it, but I prefer Mr Gallaway's more measured approach.
Temperate. It's a street corner thing that you got upset about.
Yes, that was...
Me too.
That was
distasteful.
Right. Yes, it certainly was. Yeah.
Oh dear, we'll take a break. Coming up, National, are they taking a neck-weed approach to carbon emissions, and is theatre etiquette under siege? That's next.